Hi, my name is Hannah Gennatu, and I'm going to be reading my submission for the creative writing assignment. I thought it'd be boring to just watch someone read a paper, so I'm just going to record the audio. Before I begin, I want to say that the story is in first person, so some of the grammar isn't technically correct, but it fits my character. So let's begin. Our troops were marching through Virginia at the time when we stopped to refill our canteens at the river. I wandered past the rest of the group because I also needed to use the bathroom, and while we were at war, I felt kind of weird doing that around people. As I was filling up my canteen, I felt a strong arm wrap around my neck and heard someone whisper in my ear, "Surrender your weapons now, rebel, or we'll kill you." I was completely paralyzed. My mind was racing. I knew that if I tried, I could get myself out of his grasp, grab the knife in my left pocket, and attack them with the pocket knife my father gave me, along with the rest of my weapons. They were way too important to my family to just give up to some Yankee. I quickly dropped my canteen, elbowed the guy in the gut, reached for my knife, and prepared myself for whatever unholy crime I was about to commit. As I turned around, I saw no one except my older brother, Rhett, who looked terrified. "Calm down, Thomas, it was only a joke," he said, chuckling. Well, I sure didn't think it was funny. I laughed along with him, picked up my canteen, and walked back to the troops together. Rhett and I weren't always the best of friends, but I knew I could count on him for anything, and vice versa. Since he was older, he was like my protector, and I loved him for it. Although his humor was a bit twisted at times, we still got along, for the most part, especially since Pa said we were becoming men now and had to act like it. Part of becoming men, he said, was being able to take responsibility of the plantation and the slaves when he passed. Even though Rhett was the oldest, I was always the mature one, which led me to believe that I would inherit the land and the slaves. But Pa was getting old and left most responsibilities up to Rhett since he was stronger, which upset me and made me want to prove myself even more. That's why I had to join the army. Pa had to see how strong I could be. Plus, Rhett was with me, so nothing could go wrong. We marched through the hot summer weather all the way up to Pennsylvania, where we were going to use the element of surprise to attack the Yankees and hopefully weaken them enough to end the war. Rhett and I were excited about fighting them damn Yankees, but not necessarily about who came with us. We had Negroes traveling with us to hold our stuff and to take care of us in case anything happened, but Pa told me never to trust them. We had more than I can count back home, but I never really liked them. Pa told us they were cunning and dirty liars. They would always be loyal to us until they wasn't. They was always running away from the farm, and Pa would have had to hire men to go get them. "Them damn Negroes," he'd always say, "they don't know how good they have it here. We give them our leftover bread every day, and they still ain't grateful. I ought to kill them all at once I'm done with them." Good riddance, I always thought to myself. They're nothing but cotton-picking troublemakers. Even the ones who were with us probably didn't know nothing about being doctors or even know how to carry supplies. I hated even looking at them, but one of them kept staring at me, so I had to say something. "What are you looking at, Negro?" I said. "Why don't you focus on carrying them supplies, huh? Or is that too hard for you?" I could hear Rhett chuckling beside me. The slave quickly diverted his eyes, which made me feel strangely upset. Wasn't sure why, nor did I care. Rhett gave me a high five, and that was the end of that. We first encountered the Yankees in Gettysburg. I was scared out of my mind. This was the first time in battle, but I knew I'd survive as long as I had Rhett. Throughout the entire battle, he had my back, especially when my fear overcame me and I made real stupid decisions. "What are you doing?" he'd yell. "Stop being so damn absent-minded and fight!" I hadn't realized how stupid I was being until he mentioned it. After the fighting died down for the day, Rhett found me eating dinner. Boy, was he upset. "What the hell's your problem, Thomas? Do you not get what's going on here? This is war. You can't get scared, else you're gonna die. It's that simple. If you die, Pa's gonna blame me. You're 18 now, you need to start acting like a man." He looked like he wanted to say more, but he stormed off. Rhett had never mouthed off to me like that. It made me feel so dirty on the inside, like I'd betrayed him. I went to sleep that night praying he'd forgive me for being so stupid. I loved Rhett more than anything, and him being mad at me made me feel so low. The next day, the fighting was way worse. It seemed like there were more Yankees to fight, probably because I didn't feel very confident that Rhett would really care if I lived or died today. I was deep in thought about this when I saw Rhett go down. "Rhett!" I yelled as I ran to him, not caring how much danger I was putting myself in. I was so focused on getting to my brother, I didn't see the Yankee heading towards me, nor did I see someone heading towards me at full speed through my peripheral vision. I wasn't exactly sure what was going on. Gunshots were ringing in my ear, Rhett was possibly dead, and I was going to get myself killed by either the Yankee or the mysterious stranger next to me. This was exactly what I wasn't prepared for. Rhett was right. I couldn't survive on my own. Whatever happened to me after this was well-deserved. I braced myself for the bullet wound that was about to enter my body and slowly drain the life out of me. Except that wasn't what happened. I heard a gun go off close to me, but it wasn't me that the bullet went through. It was Yankee. I turned around to look for the mysterious guy who came up next to me. It was a Negro. Not just any old Negro, but the same one who was staring at me on the way to Gettysburg. He who was holding one of Rhett's guns and shooting at the other Yankees. He shot so well you would have thought he was one of us. I didn't understand why a Negro would run right in the middle of a battlefield. He couldn't have been that stupid because he knew how to shoot. Also, why did he choose to save me in particular? Not that it mattered, but my life was worth more than his anyways. None of it made sense. I felt like I recognized his face from somewhere, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. I turned back to find Rhett, but he was busy trying to get away from the gunfire while holding his chest. The slave ran over to help him out and got him to one of the Negro nurses. I didn't see what happened after that. However, after we were forced to retreat a little bit, I immediately went to go visit him. "It's gonna be okay, Rhett," I said. "The nurses will take care of you. Just hang tight for a while, okay?" He nodded and said, "Tell our Negro I said thank you." Our Negro? What the hell was Rhett talking about? It must have been the medicine he was getting. He sure as hell wasn't ours. I didn't remember Pa sending our Negroes with us. Then again, I didn't know about how Pa ran things or anything about our slaves, so it could have been a possibility. I didn't want to get caught conversing with a Negro for more than 5 seconds, so I knew I'd have to come up with something. I walked over to the slave quarters and said, "Which one of you Negroes is named Walker?" And when he stood up, I said, "You're coming with me, boy." The look of terror in his eyes stunned me again, making me feel like complete scum. As we walked, I tried to make myself look as stern and assertive as possible until we could get to a safe place to talk. We found a nearby river to refill our canteens. I dropped my tough act and finally asked what had been bothering me all day. "Why'd you save me?" He looked a little thrown back by my question, but he answered back, "Because your father owes me, Mr. Walker." So that explains why he kept on looking at me. "Well, thanks, I guess," I said, feeling strange saying thank you to a slave. But this one couldn't be that bad. He went out of his way to save me. But if Pa didn't own him, would he have still done it? I didn't want to think about it. All I knew is that he was the only reason Rhett and I were even alive. We talked some more after that. Turns out his name was Benjamin, and his ma used to take care of me when I was little, which probably explained the familiarity. As we retreated from Pennsylvania back to North Carolina, we talked a bit more each day. He'd tell me about how his mom was doing, and we'd share a few laughs over things that happened back home. But he wasn't my friend. Not yet. But he was something. He understood why I thought I should get the land, not Rhett. He knew how mature I was from watching his mom play with me and all the things she used to say about me. He told me all about what Pa did to him and his family. Pa actually beat Ben's Pa to death because he was teaching the other slaves how to read. It struck me differently when Ben said it rather than if Pa told me himself. Ben looked as if he was about to break into tears when he was explaining it to me. It happened to him when he was real little, but he still remembered every detail. The thought of Pa doing that made me just really disappointed in him. I had no idea that Pa had even killed any of them. On our last day traveling back home, Ben told me that his Pa taught him a few letters, but not much else, and that he wished he could read and write, but none of the other slaves knew how. I thought about it for a second and said, "I'll help you out, but only at night. Pa would kill us if he caught us." He agreed happily to my conditions. "Well, I guess this means you got yourself a teacher," I said as I pulled out my hand to shake his. I had never really touched a Negro before, not like this. He shook my hand firmly, and that's when I realized something. A Negro handshake and a white man's handshake aren't the slightest bit different. Actually, nothing about the two people are much different except for their skin color. Is this what the Confederacy had us fighting for? A physical part of us no one can control? My newly found friendship with Ben was exactly what I had wanted all my life, someone who I could talk to about anything and not have to worry about censoring my feelings. However, being friends with a Negro in the South was like saying you didn't believe in God. You'd become a social outcast. So I made sure no one saw us together. I was real careful. Ben understood my caution and knew it'd backfire for him too, so it wasn't a problem. Not until Rhett started getting suspicious and asking questions like, "What's up with you and that Negro, brother?" Or, "You know what Pa would do if he caught you two?" I knew exactly what would happen, which is why I made sure to visit Ben after Pa went to sleep and before he woke up every morning. Rhett was never the best at keeping secrets when we was younger. At age 20, he was no different. Ever since we got back from the battle, he kept threatening telling Pa on me unless I stopped. But I could never abandon Ben. He is such an eager student and a loyal friend. However, being up all night made Ben even more tired, and apparently his performance showed it. When Pa noticed Ben wasn't keeping up with the others, he'd whip him and yell at them. "Lazy Negro, can't you pick cotton like all your little Negro friends over there? Or is that too hard for you?" That was the moment I realized how ignorant I had been. Just because Pa couldn't see how much potential these people had didn't mean I couldn't. I knew what I had to do. I started speeding up my lessons so that he'd be able to sleep more. He didn't even mind. The only thing Ben cared about was getting educated. He loved any information he could wrap his mind around, since he didn't do much but pick cotton and sing songs all day. Sometimes if we finished early, we'd sit outside far away from the house and talk about what life off the plantation would be like. I knew Ben wanted to escape the North to be free, but neither one of us knew how to get him there. One night we were out talking. I guess I hadn't been very careful of making sure no one knew where I was going, because I heard someone coming behind me. It was Pa. I was frozen with fear. He looked at me and Ben with astonishment first, then rage. "What the hell are you doing, Thomas? Are you talking to this worthless Negro who can't even pick cotton right? Damn, son, I thought you were better than that." I didn't dare speak or even move a muscle. I imagine Ben felt the same way. Just then I remembered that Ben was doing some writing exercises I gave him, pen still in hand. I saw Pa's eyes move towards his hand, and I just about thought his eyes would come shooting out of his head. "You teaching him to write? Thomas, are you insane? Them is stupid Negroes. You know they can't read or write." He looked at Ben with rage I've never seen from Pa. I knew I had to act fast if I wanted Ben to survive. I saw Pa charge at Ben and immediately threw him to the ground. Since Pa was older now, he didn't have nearly enough strength to fight me. As I was restraining him from getting up, I managed to yell, "Run, Ben!" I saw him moving through my peripheral vision, and I waited until I knew for sure he was gone. Pa got up and looked at me like I was crazy. "What the hell did you do that for?" he asked. I knew he wouldn't understand, even if I explained it to him, so I didn't say anything. "I'll find your little friend, Thomas," he said. "No matter how far he runs, I'll find him. Can't let them Negroes just run free. Don't you understand what you were fighting for?" I did understand what I was fighting for, I wanted to say. I was fighting for the wrong side, the side that tossed humanity out the window and thought the people who weren't white were less human. The side I was fighting for let people get treated worse than animals, encouraged it, even though their own children who were raised by these Negroes. Everything I was raised to believe in was a lie. But I didn't say any of that. I just looked at Pa, walked away, and smiled, because I knew that by the time Pa and whoever else he got to help him would actually start looking for Ben, he would have been long gone.